Disclaimer: this video is about how to fall asleep, not how to stop being tired or how to be more healthy. This is how to fall asleep. The baseline of this video is to encourage you to experiment with how you sleep and to find what works for you. Everyone is a little bit different, and the way you sleep is not the same as how someone else might enjoy a good night's rest. There are two sides that it takes when falling asleep: the physical aspects and the mental aspects. The physical aspects can be covered with physical objects, and the mental aspects are often bigger hurdles to overcome when attempting to fall asleep. Let's focus on the physical aspects first. As humans, we have many senses, but there are three core ones that I focus on first before worrying about anything else, and these are sight, hearing, and touch. For each of these senses, I would encourage experimenting with different levels of each sense in order to see if there's something that you've overlooked in your normal sleeping pattern. For example, for sight, some people might think that having a pitch black room is absolutely necessary for falling asleep. I always thought that was me, but sometimes sleeping with a light on encourages me to fall asleep a little bit faster, and it makes me a little bit more drowsy. So experimenting with the variations of different levels in your senses can help you find a better way to fall asleep. The same can be said for hearing and touch. For hearing, I almost always prefer an incredibly silent room, but having a fan on or listening to calming sounds or white noise over your phone speaker can help lull you into a different sense of comfortability than you might not have experienced before. I would also look up ASMR. I know it's a little weird, but it has helped encourage me to sleep in a way that I have not been familiar with before. Experimentation is the key for finding new ways to fall asleep if you're struggling with falling asleep now. The last major sense is touch, which falls into many other senses as well, where you have temperature or balance playing into how you're feeling. Touch can be experimented with in many different ways, either by changing mattresses or lying on the ground or trying to sleep in a hammock. Experimenting with touch can also lead to experimentations with having a breeze on you either by a fan or opening up a window. Or if you want a cuddling effect, you could try out what are called weighted blankets, or you could even make your own. And these add an entire weight to your body or wherever you want to locate the blanket, and it really helps lock you down in a certain way. Part of touch is heat for me. I know that if I'm having a hard time falling asleep and my head gets rather warm, it can make sleeping on a pillow really uncomfortable because the heat keeps building up, and it makes it more frustrating the longer I stay awake. If you have a pillow insert that stays cool for a longer duration, it allows you more time to fall asleep because your pillow can stay cooler for longer, thus making the process way less frustrating. I also know as a young teenager, washing your sheets might not be the first thing on your mind, and maybe that's just the thing you need to do, is wash your sheets more often. Don't forget to wash your pillowcase too. Touch is very crucial when trying to fall asleep because it's the thing that can irritate you the most when you're trying to relax and zone out. Finding the correct mental state to fall asleep in is often difficult because emotions are hard to control, and if you're facing depression or anxiety or whatever else you might be going through, it's really difficult to force yourself to think in one way or another. For me, it's easiest to fall asleep when I'm happy or I'm feeling content, and this is not always an achievable emotion, and not every night you're going to be able to fall asleep easily, and that's just a reality. But I find if I did have a manageable day, focusing on things that make me happy or that I am thankful for is an easier way to lull myself into a state of accepting a chillaxation. What I mean by that is, if I can do a sort of cheesy count my blessings, I can move forward in accepting that, yeah, some bad stuff happened, but I have a lot to be thankful for, and in that case, I can put myself more at ease, I can release the tension, and I can not focus on what's going to happen in the future or what's happening in the past, but I can focus on what makes me happy and the positives that life has to offer. Being content or happy does not have to be rooted within lying to yourself about being happy that the ground didn't collapse beneath you every day. Having good time management and covering your bases when it comes to life can also help you sleep a little bit better. For me personally, I know if I have a big assignment due coming up, it's better for me to get it out of the way now, and I won't lose sleep over it. If there's other things that are impending, but you can't tackle them before you have to go to bed, following the route of lying to yourself can often be the best case scenario. Learning how to manage emotions is not an easy task to do. It often takes years or an entire lifetime to learn how to manage what you're feeling and how to use those feelings to your advantage. Oftentimes, meditation is a tool that people use to allow thoughts to pass through their mind without actually latching onto those thoughts and diving too deep into them to be disruptive emotionally. Looking into meditation and how that can translate into sleeping better is a good way to learn how to not let thoughts be intrusive and how to let your brain think but not fight against those thoughts. Whenever you fight against your brain, you're just going to create more tension and more thoughts, and you're going to dig yourself into a deeper hole than you began with. At the end of the day, life is pretty hard sometimes, and sleep is not always a thing that you want to be trying to toy with at the end of the day where you're already feeling really tired and don't really want to put any further thought into it. But making this investment now could potentially be very rewarding if you do find a way for yourself to sleep better, and you find that sleeping on the ground with a light on, with a fan oscillating on you every few minutes is the optimal way to sleep. Even though that might be a really cumbersome way to try and find the best way for you to fall asleep, at least you know that there are certain aspects that do allow you to actually get a good night's rest. Maybe nothing I said has been helpful, or you feel like you've tried it all, and at that point I can really only recommend that you talk to a professional. I will now give an example of what I do in my night. The start of my night happens by getting things done. I always like to have a to-do list that is currently running with everything I need to do, and that way I can have everything in my mind plotted out for the next day, so I don't have to worry if I'm forgetting everything, and I can get what I currently need to get done, set for my goals for the day, and that way I can relieve a little bit of stress right before I go to bed, just making sure there's nothing to worry about. I also try and avoid any sort of toxic people or opening up my phone too much and getting sucked down a rabbit hole of stupid stuff that I really just don't want to deal with. It's a no drama zone when I'm trying to go to bed. I also try not to eat too much. Being overly full plays into the touch sense. After that, I always brush my teeth, and then I get into something comfy. This is very weather dependent and dependent on your room and how your sleeping setup is. So for me, typically, I go for any sort of pajama pants and then no shirt. And that's typically good year-round for me, using a comforter and whatever weight I like to put on my feet when I sleep. I also make sure I have my alarm set. That way I don't have to worry about sleeping in or missing out on what is going to be happening the following day. I also update my to-do list and make sure that there's nothing else I need to get done, and that way I can have some peace of mind for the next day. Then I'll hop into bed and floss my teeth, of course, and typically I'll put on some ASMR and I'll lie down. And at this point, I'm just existing. I'm just being happy, being exhausted, and letting life just kind of wash over me. There's nothing I exactly try and concentrate on unless there's a lot of conflict going on in my mind. Then again, I focus on the positives, but I don't try to sleep per se. I just want to exist, and I know sleeping will come, so I try not to think about sleeping at all. I just let life go, and whatever happens, happens, and I'll stay in bed all the way until my alarm is set. There's no fighting it, there's no getting up afterwards. I just stay in bed and chill. And that's my typical night, so hopefully that gives a little bit of insight of how I use my suggestions in my daily life, and hopefully anything that I've stated here can help you. Thanks for watching, and sweet dreams.